Welcome to NewsNation's Backscroll, where we look back at our major news coverage on the most important topics and personalities of our time.
Okay, I'm joined now by someone, and this is interesting, with intimate knowledge of the very jail cell Epstein died in. Michael Francis, he was a capo for the Colombo crime family in the 1980s. He served time in the exact cell where Epstein was later held. Michael, welcome back to the program. Tell us about that cell, and what do you make of these revelations that there is a minute missing from the surveillance video, Michael?
Well, listen, I spent 7 months on that tier and in those cells. And the first thing I have to say, there's no way you are able to commit suicide. There's just no way. There's no way to hang yourself. There's nothing from the ceiling. There's nothing from the bed. You'd have to be a midget and work really hard to try to hang yourself. And I don't think you can accomplish it at that point. As far as the cameras being off, I haven't experienced that. I did 8 years in prison. And I haven't experienced cameras being broken in the perfect storm of correctional officers not walking those cells. They walk in and they look in on you all the time. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's embarrassing to go to the toilet because they're walking past you and looking in the cell constantly. So I've said this from day one. I do not believe it was suicide. I can't talk about what happened to him, but I don't believe it was a suicide because you just couldn't physically do it. It would be almost impossible to do it. So that's number one.
It must be interesting, Michael, when you look at the video, though, it must be interesting because you know the area. I mean, we all look at this and it just looks like a prison, but this must look very familiar to you.
Absolutely. Very familiar. And the fact that a minute is missing, look, everything around this guy, I just did a very deep dive into him, which I'll be releasing on my platform in the next several days. Look, there's no way that this person operated alone. Look, they have the videos. Alan Dershowitz recently said that he saw the client list, but because there's people that he can't, because he's an attorney, he can't, reveal what he saw. But he said he saw the client list. He's demanding that it be released. To think that there's no flight logs, that there's no client list, that the thousands of recordings that they had, because I found out for sure that he had cameras on every bedroom, recording everything, and all of a sudden, all of it is gone. I mean, none of this makes sense. And look, the only reason it's important, it's not that anybody's trying to say, come on, this guy was a creep. And there was young women involved in this, young girls that were trafficked and abused. I have 5 daughters and I have granddaughters, and I just don't like it. And anybody that's involved in this should be held accountable. I recently interviewed Paul Hutchinson, who was, a major figure in the Sound of Freedom. He was one of the ones that went to rescue, I think, 51 or 52 of these young girls and young boys that were being exploited and trafficked. I mean, this has got to stop. And if these people are not held accountable, it's just going to continue. And unfortunately, it seems like it's people with power and money. It seems that, from what my investigation, that this Les Wexner was the first one that Epstein was able to bribe. And, there's a lot of stuff here that needs to come out, and it's really shameful if it doesn't. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
But as far as the jail cell, no way there was a suicide.
I want to go back to the jail cell because you lived in that jail cell. And just real quick, again, tell me, would you have the privacy in that jail cell to take your own life?
Not only would you not have the privacy, I don't understand how you would be able to do it. You have to hang yourself from something. There's nothing on the ceiling that you can hang a bed sheet on. The bed is not that high. I mean, you have to try to lay down on the floor in some way because Jeffrey Epstein was a fairly big guy. You'd have to be a midget to even try to hang yourself. So it's not a question of not only are there cameras on are the COs walking the tier constantly, especially from what I understand, Jeffrey Epstein was on suicide watch for a while. They watch you very, very closely. Trust me on that. So I just can't buy it. I cannot buy it. I'm sorry. And I have no horse in this race other than my experience and the fact that I just couldn't see it happening.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we appreciate you coming on tonight, Michael. We appreciate your perspective, especially as someone who's been in that exact cell. Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
But Mark, for you, it's personal. This was your brother. And just so everybody knows, Mark wasn't part of anything that his brother was doing in this regard. He's never been connected to it. There's never been a suggestion. It's not about that. But Mark, you do not believe what the administration, the Trump administration, is putting out about your brother now. Why?
Well, every time they say something or do something to try to quash the fact that he was most likely murdered, they just put their foot further down their mouth. I mean, for instance, Kash Patel in the congressional hearing, he listed his credentials as a prosecutor and other such things, and he said that it was a suicide. He said, "You know a suicide when you see it." That's basically what he said. So the questions that popped into my mind was, first of all, number one, how many suicides has he seen? Number one. Two, is he a forensic pathologist? Does he have a medical degree? Does he have a certificate that he passed a CPR course? Does he have a Boy Scout merit badge for first aid? What is he basing his expertise on? Contrast that to Dr. Roman, who was a city pathologist who did the autopsy. She came out of the autopsy and said she couldn't call it a suicide because it looked too much like a homicide. Dr. Michael Bodden, who was there on my behalf, who witnessed the autopsy, also concurred that it looked more like a homicide than a suicide. Now, was Kash Patel in the autopsy room? No. Was Kash Patel in the prison when they found Jeffrey? No, I don't think so. And if he was there, that raises even a bigger question. So every time they say something, I mean, when Kash Patel came out with that statement, I laughed at how stupid it was. And then they just released this video. This you're going to like. After the death, a few days after the death, Bill Barr, the Attorney General, said he saw that video and he saw that nobody went in or out of the tier, and that convinced him it was a suicide. And I heard that and I realized how stupid that was, because no one could get to that door, go in, kill somebody, leave completely undetected. So that's like an asinine concept. So if Jeff was killed, he was either killed by somebody on the tier or when they locked up the tier. So that's one part of it. Now, I asked to get the footage from that same camera on the Freedom of Information Act from 10 o'clock the night before until noon the following morning. That would show who locked up the tier, who were the last people on that tier. And in the morning, it would show, Michael Thomas going in the guard and finding the body, and it would show what the situation was when they removed the body from the tier. I was initially told I couldn't get that footage because it was still an open investigation. Okay, I understand that. But then when the investigation was over, I asked for that footage again, okay? And I was now told that the cameras that were operating don't show that area.
That's right.
I have this in writing from the Bureau of Prisons, that the cameras that were operating
I remember.
don't show that. And I was very specific about the footage. It's the same footage that Bill Barr saw.
No, Mark, listen, I get it. I get it. And the transparency wasn't there. And then they said that there was a malfunction. Then they said they weren't coordinated. And look, I get why you guys are upset about what's happening here. But I can tell you this, it's not over. And it's not about what I think or don't think about the situation. That's not relevant. The process isn't over. Liz, thank you. We'll be in touch whenever you want. You know how to get me. Take care. We'll keep talking. Mark Epstein, we're always a call away.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday. It's nice to have you here. Boy, do I have a full show. I got to get going right away, or I will not fit it all in. Let's start here. I kind of thought I'd be done with Epstein a long time ago. I am not done with Epstein. As it turns out, we are not done with Epstein because, the whole digital fuss with that video that the DOJ said was proof that nothing to see here. Oh, yeah, there's nothing to see outside his cell. Turns out, maybe not so much, because digitally speaking, looks like there's stuff called metadata that matters. Yeah, this. Apparently it was screwed with. And that's not me talking, it's the science. It's the digital science. Tonight, we're going to talk about drilling down on the digital science to find out what exactly is missing and what was stitched together in this video, and what does it tell us and what does it not tell us. And I'm also going back a little further to that hyoid bone in Jeffrey Epstein's neck, because now I'm starting to see it in a whole new light. I'm going to tell you all about that with 3 reasons tonight. 3 reasons why that may not have been a suicide. Also, today, something came to light that I didn't expect. Kind of thought that all of us were waiting with bated breath for the gag order in the Idaho quadruple murder case to be lifted. Kind of expected it would be lifted at least by next week when the sentencing of Brian Kohberger happens. Both the prosecutors and the defense attorneys agreed at his plea hearing that there's no reason to keep these details under a gag order anymore. So who was it? I want to know, who was it who's filed a motion saying, oh, I think we should. I think it should stay sealed, because somebody did. I'm going to tell you about that, and I'll tell you what the resolution looks like it might be, because we are like hours away from some kind of resolution there. And a lot of mysteries that we would really like answered as to why this monster took away 4 innocent, beautiful children who he didn't even know. That's coming up. And then it's not often that just a everyday attempted kidnapping makes it on the air on a national show. Unless, of course, that attempted kidnapping turned into a kidnapping that ended up on video with audio, that ended up with police saying, I want everybody across the nation to look at this woman as the gold standard of what you need to do if anybody ever grabs you. Take a look. Lest you think that he knew her, that would never happen to me. That's got to be something between those 2 people. He did not know her. He robbed her store and then decided to steal her. So I will tell you exactly what it is that she did, that the cops are saying, boy, oh boy, I hope everybody follows her lead if they find themselves in that boat. Let me start here. Who would have ever thought that Jeffrey Epstein, of all people, would bring together mortal enemies in the blood sport that we call politics, with the still murky details of his own pathetic death back in 2019. It used to be, not that long ago actually, that the left and the right could always find common ground in America on things like international relations or, the civil service or maybe even elections. But now that common ground seems to be how Epstein died and whether or not a rich and well-connected pedophile sex trafficker really did hang himself in his jail cell. 3 successive administrations have said that's exactly what happened. But still, there are legions of people on both sides of the aisle who believe that Epstein was strangled inside that jail cell to shut him up and to keep him from releasing big names, big, important people who may have been a part of his sick tendency to surround himself with young girls and then pass them around to his friends for sex after he himself had had them for sex. And when I say legions of people, I mean more and more people than ever before seem to be convinced that Epstein was murdered, not that he took his own life. Especially because of the way the current administration has been making the case that Epstein killed himself. Case closed, nothing to see here. And frankly, I am more than happy to leave the politics to any other show that wants to cover it, because I myself am here for the mystery. This is a hell of a true crime mystery on our hands. And tonight we've uncovered 3 big reasons to suspect that Epstein's sudden and untimely end may not exactly have been his idea. The first is what a former inmate told us about that same jail cell, right? At the Metropolitan Correctional Center, because that inmate himself was in that cell, the same cell. Michael Francis was a capo for the Colombo crime family back in the 1980s, and he did time in the very same cell where Jeffrey Epstein was later housed. He said on this show, there is no way that Epstein could have done what the authorities claim he did, killed himself.
I did 8 years in prison, and I haven't experienced cameras being broken in the perfect storm of correctional officers not walking those cells. They walk in and they look in on you all the time. As a matter of fact, you know, sometimes it's embarrassing to go to the toilet because they're walking past you and looking in the cell constantly. So I've said this from day one. I do not believe it was suicide. I can't talk about what happened to him, but I don't believe it was a suicide because you just couldn't physically do it. It would be almost impossible.
A second reason for suspicion about the whole suicide theory comes from this, what you're looking at, not me, other side, the digital forensics from that newly released surveillance video outside of Epstein's jail cell. It was supposed to prove once and for all that nobody went in or out of Epstein's cell on his last night alive. But some new forensic analysis shows that the video was not raw video, as the DOJ insists it was, but that it was instead edited video. Very different, and may in fact have been manipulated. So-called metadata, right? It shows all that footage that the feds made public for the first time last week was created at 4:48 p.m. on May 23rd of this year, and that it was last modified at 8:16 p.m., very same day. The user who created the video file and made the changes to the video file is listed as MJ Cole 1. MJ Cole 1. And what sort of changes did MJ Cole 1 make? The metadata shows that the final cut was actually 2 video clips. 2. Stitched together. And one of the original clips was almost 3 minutes longer than it is in the public version that the DOJ released. I'm joined now by the expert I always call when I have to use the word metadata, Jake Green. He's a digital forensics expert and the technical operations manager at Invista Forensics. He's among several private experts who've analyzed the Epstein video. Jake, thank God you are back on the show. There seems to be so much confusion. At first, when this video, raw video, was released, everybody went bananas saying, oh, a minute and 2 seconds was missing. And then the DOJ said, oh, no, it's always like that. It's just the way the camera resets. And suddenly, more experts have weighed in saying it's more like 3 minutes of video is kind of missing or at least not there or manipulated. Can you explain this in lay people's terms?
Really, it's difficult to. So when we think of raw data, that's something that since I've come into the private sector and started asking law enforcement and the government for raw data, oftentimes our first level of prosecutors do not know what raw data is, and most lay people don't. Raw data is something that is in a forensically reliable format, meaning that we can go in and review it and confirm that it matches the original. What has been produced in this case is what you could consider as work product. This is not the original. This is a child of the original. There's so many issues with this video. The minutes missing, the jumps. We can sometimes see a cursor move in the top right corner. There's so many pieces wrong with this video, and for the DOJ to release it, it's strange, and it's kind of unnerving to know that this is the way they want to do this.
It sounds kind of dopey, actually, when you say what you said about the cursor being seen up on the top, because as we all know, surveillance cameras don't have cursors. So is there any way that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill? Is there any way that it's just normal to take a surveillance camera and then have a human download it and have a human send it off to the DOJ and then have the DOJ as humans send it out to us, and that's what we're really seeing?
So actually, I don't think the first part of what you said happened. I don't think that this was a download from a surveillance system. I think this was what we call a screen capture. This is just a copy of a video of a video. So somebody went in with some type of software to actually record what the screen was showing. It's not in a reliable format. It may be reliable as to what was on the screen, but it cannot be confirmed to match what was originally recorded. So I think that's really what we're seeing here is just, it truly is the work product of FBI going in and attempting to change and alter and perhaps try to enhance the video, but it's clearly not the original.
That's very upsetting to hear the words altered. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, tried to explain it away when the first uproar, shook the internet, that there was a minute and 2 seconds, missing. And she seemed to be very clear that that's normal. Every night, the video system resets right before midnight, and that 1 minute and 2 is just normally gone. Did that sit well with you? Could that be legitimate? Is that part of this problem, or is it really very little to do with the problem that we now see, this larger stitched together with 3 minutes somehow kind of not there?
It makes it stink even worse. There are computers that sometimes we do have to do scheduled restarts to ensure that we're running the correct software. We're running updates for our security. But for a network attached video storage unit, like if this is what it truly came from, you wouldn't want it to shut down for at least a minute every night. And definitely don't want it to do the same minute every night, especially if word gets out about that. Then you've got a complete minute every day of the year that you're not going to have video for.
Let me ask you about this username. I hadn't heard it before, the second uproar about the raw video release. MJ Cole 1. MJ Cole 1. I'm shocked that smart people like you are able to even see a username that was mussing about with this video. But is it super obvious? Like, was this just all thumbs at the DOJ, sending this out to Attorney General Pam Bondi and making her look like, for lack of a better word, an idiot? Because MJ Cole 1 apparently is quite obvious.
So MJ Cole, I hope, is a digital forensic analyst, somebody that works with surveillance video that was trying to produce a work product. So whether it was truly a work product or they think it is or think it's the original, there's no way to tell. But MJ Cole is a shortened Windows username. So it could be short for MJ Coleman, any other last name that has C-O-L-E at the beginning. So there's really no way to tell with what we have now. But that is something that we see in Windows systems for when we see a shortened username.
Is there any chance that the edit, the manipulation, the changes were just done automatically? Like, I know when we talk about the programs, it sounds like that's a human throwing video in and messing with it. But is there any way that you can see that this is all just much ado about nothing, that technically speaking, this could have happened in transfers and there's nothing nefarious about it?
So with what we're seeing now, we can say rather definitively that this is not within the realm of digital forensics best practices. Doing a screen capture of a surveillance system is our last resort in every case that we ever work. We would want to preserve the entirety of that server if that's what it's backing up to. We'd want to preserve the VHS tape if that's how old the system was. But in order to do that, we have to follow any type of forensics crime scene. We want to ensure that we're preserving evidence. So if we're just grabbing a screen capture, we're leaving behind so much data.
Well, that's distressing, and I kind of had a feeling that it wasn't going to feel satisfactory, although I absolutely love interviewing you. Jake Green, thanks so much for this. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ashley.
All right, folks, if you were paying attention earlier, you know that I said there were 3 reasons to suspect that Jeffrey Epstein may have been murdered, but I only gave you 2. And the reason is that number 3 is a detail from Epstein's autopsy. His injuries included fractures of the left and right thyroid cartilage at the front of the neck, as well as the left hyoid bone. Hyoid bone is a U-shaped bone that sits just under your jaw, and it serves as an anchor for your tongue. The experts say it is uncommon to see those types of fractures after a hanging. They're far more likely to be caused by a manual strangulation. Now, I'm not going to suggest for a moment that you mimic the difference between a hanging, which is sort of a vertical pressure, right, under your chin, as opposed to a lateral pressure, which is usually a strangulation. Don't do it, because I have Dr. Michelle Dupree here. She's a former medical examiner, retired forensic pathologist, and a former law enforcement officer. All right, Doc, I've talked about this before, but it just sort of bears repeating, given that we're getting more forensic information about this very confusing scene at the MCC. The hyoid bone on Jeffrey Epstein was broken. It's not as though other hangings haven't produced a broken hyoid bone. It's just rare in this kind of hanging, because as I understand it, he was hanging forward, meaning he used the sheet to tie it around his neck and then sort of tipped forward as opposed to vertically hanging. Did I explain that right? And if I did, does it sound like it's silly to think that a 66-year-old man has a broken hyoid bone from that kind of hanging?
Ashley, you're absolutely right. You did an excellent job. And we don't see the hyoid bone broken in most hangings. In fact, we don't see a lot of broken bones in hangings at all. And when we do, they're definitely not in that location. They're more at the C2 or C3 location. The hyoid bone is almost pathognomonic for manual strangulation. And only about, I did some research on this, maybe 6% of cases is the hyoid bone ever broken in a hanging. And that's not the only thing. There are many, many other questions, in fact, more questions than answers. He was found, as I understand it, sitting. He was not even suspended. There's not enough force. He didn't drop down and hang himself. He was basically sitting when this happened, or sitting on the floor or touching the floor, again, not suspended. There's not quite enough force to do the amount of damage that is described in the autopsy report. That's very disconcerting. I don't understand some of this. This raises an awful lot of questions.
Let me ask you this. I am certainly not an expert in your field, but I've done a bit of reading, kind of macabre stuff, but older people might actually break the hyoid bone in a way that younger people might not. Could that be an explanation for why Jeffrey Epstein's hyoid bone was broken, because he was 66?
I'm not saying that it's impossible, but usually when we think of someone older like that, we think of really old, maybe in their 80s, and that comes from calcification. It didn't appear, and I have not read the autopsy report, and I have not seen photos, so I'm at a bit of a disadvantage. But I don't think that sounds very likely. No, I wouldn't think that would be the cause of it.
That's the other thing. You probably haven't seen photos because they didn't take any, which I find, you know, in my business, there's always photos of a crime scene. There's always photos of a suspicious scene. There were no photos of Jeffrey Epstein in his cell. Is that protocol because it was a jail? Does that seem legitimate to you, or does that seem highly unusual?
Actually, that is highly unusual. Deaths in custody are something that we really don't like. I mean, we try to stick exactly by the book on those, because those are very serious cases when there is a death in custody. Everything should be done by the book. There are always scene photographs, whether it's in the jail cell or whether it's out in the field. It doesn't matter. Photographs are taken at the scene to document how the victim was found. That can tell us so much information. And in this case, we have a lot of unanswered questions.
Boy, do we ever. I'm going to have you back. Dr. Michelle Dupree, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, so now here's another one that I wanted to leave alone, but you know what? My producer was right. It's just too sexy. Listen to what the speaker just said about the president of these United States.
And he's not saying that what Epstein did is a hoax. It's a terrible, unspeakable evil. He believes that himself. When he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this stuff down. The president knows and has great sympathy for the women who have suffered these unspeakable harms.
Did he just say the president's an FBI snitch? Pete?
Pretty much. Chris, the president is a
Hold on,
chameleon.
Pete, did you hear what I just said? Did you just hear that the president was a CI for the FBI? You know, talk about deep state. Pete, did I just hear what I thought I heard?
That's the first time I've seen or heard it in its entirety. And you want to say, well, if that's the case, Mr. Speaker and Mr. President, why didn't you just say this from the very beginning? But right. You just touched on it, Chris. The deep state. Let's play along. Let's say it's true. Would President Trump want to say that he was working along with the quote-unquote deep state? That in and of itself could be damaging to his political reputation. So I'm curious to see where this goes.
As Jesus said, snitches get stitches.
Jesus
Look, I
did
mean,
not. But he did turn over some tables, Chris. Now that he did do.
He
okay?
did. He
did turn over
He
some
let the money
Chris,
changers have it. He let the money changers have it. You know,
He did.
Go ahead,
The
Nina.
president is a
Let me tell you what
chameleon.
matters about this.
I mean, the president is a chameleon. This is just he is some kind of special, and the world is not ready. Now I'm going to put that aside. If the president sincerely believes what Speaker Johnson just said, then why was he allowing planes to fly overhead while the survivors were telling their stories? Why doesn't the president just simply say to those women who were young girls at the time that I feel your pain? You know, take a page out of President Bill Clinton's book. And you know what? We're not going to stand for this, and let the chips fall where they may legally. I get we got to redact and protect some people, because not everybody who was affiliated with Epstein, we got to lead, not everybody that was affiliated with him knew necessarily the vile nature of him, but far too many people did. And the president can come out and say that we're not going to protect these powerful people. I'm standing with you. I see you. I hear you.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. But now to say, Speaker Johnson is saying that the president is with these women. The president has not said that once, Chris or Pete,
No.
as far as I know.
No, Pete. I mean, here's why Epstein won't go away. Okay, it's not because of the truth. It's because of the cell. And you made it a boogeyman. You made it a function of bringing down the rich and powerful, who it turns out don't just have more money, but they are into eating babies, or whatever stupid mythologies were sold at the time. And you said you'd be transparent. And sure, you can say, oh, if the women have names, why didn't they come out before? I'm not mad at them. There's no responsibility on them. There's a responsibility on the government. And you campaigned on transparency, and you consistently screw us about it. The UAPs, Kennedy, Dr. King, and now this. Why don't they just put out whatever they have? Be careful. Thomas Massey saying John Paulson is one of them. I can't believe he hasn't sued him yet. But do you think it doesn't go away until they give more stuff away?
This could dog us as long as the moon landing has dogged us, Chris. I think no matter what comes out, there will be segments of the Republican side and segments of the Democratic side that are unsatisfied and think something is being hidden. I will tell you, I have never been a fan of this. I want justice for those survivors, but the whole Epstein story itself is infuriating to me, because there are people who believe that government is only competent when it comes to conspiracies, that somehow they can execute these extravagant conspiracies without leaks, without anybody knowing what's going on, but they somehow can't run Obamacare or Social Security effectively and efficiently. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, we got to be very careful about attacking what sustains us in this society. We love pulling at the threads, but that's why I have you guys to speak reasonably about things. And Nina Turner, you do that 10 times out of 10. Pete Seat, you too. Thank you very much for being about what's best for all of us, not just some of us.
From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given. But it's really a Democrat hoax, because they're trying to get people to talk about something that's totally irrelevant to the success that we've had as a nation since I've been president.
I don't know that is going to sell, but let's ask some better minds, okay? I got the three Americans assembled for you tonight. Bill O'Reilly and the one and only Stephen A. Smith. They're with me for the whole hour. Gentlemen, thank you very much for that. It's good to have you both. Stephen A. took the time to come in and be next to me, so I'm going to go to him first, because that's my prerogative. Stephen A., it's good to have you. It's good to have you both.
See you.
Epstein's not going away. What do you think of the president's play today and what needs to happen?
I think the president spewed a lot of drivel when he said that, it's a Democratic hoax. You can't say that when Marjorie Taylor Greene is up there saying that. You can't say that when guys like Steve Bannon is up there saying that, along with others that have been staunch supporters of him. This is an important issue, obviously, to a lot of people. A lot of folks that supported him want the quote-unquote culprits uncovered and revealed and exposed. It's something that Pam Bondi promised. It's something that Cash Patel promised. It's something that a bevy of Trump supporters have promised for quite a long time. And Trump certainly never did anything to dispel or to diminish the noise that they were making in any way. And so now that he's in office and he's called upon to show whatever it is that the administration, that the DOJ or anybody else may have in their possession to reveal what is indeed in those Epstein files, assuming there are Epstein files, he's got to address it, because there are people that are a part of his administration. Dan Bongino, let me not forget that name as well. All of these people were talking about the Epstein files, the Epstein files, the Epstein files. The one thing that Trump doesn't get to do at this particular moment in time is blame the Democrats for it. They may be doing their share in terms of pouncing on it and trying to instigate matters to some degree, but trust me, they're not the big culprits in all of this. These people that support Trump have spoken vehemently about their desire to have these files revealed, and people within his own administration said, we got something to show you, and they didn't show the American people, and everybody's remembering, and they're not going to let it go.
And Bill, in political philosophy, there's something called a Hobson's choice, which is something where there's actually really no choice at all. And I feel like this is shaken up to be one of these, not because the president, you know, of all the things that the president sold that I believe have no basis, he was not selling this one, but it was sold for him. And now people believe that there is something to know. How do you get satisfaction in this if you are this administration?
Pretty tough, because this is a very tedious story for me. I didn't even cover it tonight on the No Spin News. And before I get into why, I'm going to tell you, your monologue on the Holocaust assertion was excellent, because that's not what's happening in Israel. It's not even close. But it ties in a little bit to the Epstein story. People believe what they want to believe. Mm. This whole Epstein thing was resurrected for one reason: to try to pin some criminality on Donald Trump, some connection with Epstein. That's why you didn't hear about it during the Biden administration, even though Bill Clinton's prominently involved with this. You didn't hear a word. No Democrats were outraged. Nobody was demanding anything. Number two, I don't even know what the files are. Nobody knows what they're holding back. Are they holding back anything? Is there a big analysis? I don't know. Mm. And Congress is right to get involved and say, well, look, we want to know to make sure that there isn't any miscarriage of justice. So we're going to ask for every piece of paper to be given to an independent counsel. I'm sorry, I hate that word too.
Yeah, me too.
Everything and that person would then analyze it and come up with a report. That's the only fair way to do it. But remember something. The hatred against Donald Trump skews everything. Trump used the wrong word by saying hoax, not a hoax. It's pettifogging. And Stephen A., that's the word of the day, and he knows what it means. You take any accomplishment from Donald Trump, anything, you're not going to acknowledge it if you are a Trump hater or a Democrat, a dying wool. So, in order for every other thing to go away, you slap the most sensational thing up top. Finally, the victims. They're not doing this properly, all right? The people who were abused by Jeffrey Epstein. They should have an attorney representing them. And if they have a list of so-called abusers, those people should be sued, all right? That's how you do this. You don't say we're going to go out for dinner and make up a list, or have a list, not make it up, but have a list and then we might put it out. That's not how you do this.
Yeah, but I don't know that there's a rule book.
Way too much emotion.
I get it, but this is an emotional thing because you've got sexual assault of underage people and young people and vulnerable people. The only pushback, as a matter of fact, is the reason that Bongino and those guys were selling this wasn't to corner Trump. It was to corner Democrats, right. And it was to corner the elites, and that this was going to be the way to take down the people who escaped the system.
Neither of you are wrong on what you're saying. I'm certainly in no position to question the veracity of it all. What I'm saying is this. When you hear Pam Bondi, when you had heard her speak in the past, she indicated She has possession of the files.
On her desk.
You're about to see it. It's on the desk. We can't escape that, Bill. See, that's where Trump gets himself, I won't say in trouble, but that's where he gets himself in the eye of the storm. Even though they're targeting him to some degree, and you could always make that argument when it comes to the Democrat, it doesn't negate the fact that people in his own administration said they were in possession of it. We know what we have, and we're going to make sure that you know sooner than later, and that they don't do it. Now, come on now. You can't do that. That's what happened, Bill.
And they keep doing it. They did it with Kennedy. They did it with Dr. King. They did it with UFOs. Go ahead, Bill.
Right after Ms. Bondi said that, I said she should clarify the statement, and she should do it tomorrow.
Yep, you were right.
And then why she doesn't is a mystery of the universe. I don't know why.
Hold on, whoa. Breaking
Trump
news.
Doesn't want
she didn't listen to Bill O'Reilly? Is that what you're saying on national television? That she did not listen to you?
Has she not read the books?
What?
Number one best-selling nonfiction author of all time?
Yes.
Second only to the Bible?
That's right. How about that?
I mean,
I'm just saying.
There were a lot of guys, right? And there was a lot of guys. There were a lot of guys writing the Bible. I'm just a loner.
All by yourself.
By the way, I open up Confronting Evil, which will be out next Tuesday, with the October 7th raid on the Israeli settlement.
Evil.
That is the forward of the book to define what pure evil is in a very contemporary way. This isn't just about Genghis Khan. But getting back to President Trump, there are things that the president does that I don't understand. And I think I have probably one of the closest relationships of any media person with him. Hannity has the closest, okay? But he's never lied to me. I did ask him, are you going to release it? He said, yeah, and he didn't seem to be perturbed by any of it. So he could clean it up. The best way to clean it up is to hand over every piece of paper the Justice Department has to a special counsel, and then have a time limit on the counsel's report, not 3 years from now. That is the best, most methodical way to clear this up.
You're right, and let's add this to it. And for once, don't blame the Democrats for everything. That goes to that.
No, the Democrats want to hang Trump.
Let me say what I mean.
Yeah, but they didn't
They
start
want to pin
this.
it right around his neck.
I know they do, but what I'm saying is to do what you suggested, but in the same breath, not go that route in terms of pointing the finger at them, because people in his own administration opened their mouths and said something that was inconsistent with what he's saying.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
But let's be honest, Stephen A.
Of course we're being honest.
Let's be honest. You're a straight shooter. The motivation of the Democratic Party and the hate Trump cadre is to tie criminality around Trump's neck.
Totally true.
Not to know what the victims went through.
Okay, that's fair.
Not to sympathize with the victims.
They
don't give a hoot about the victims. They want to bring Trump down.
Collectively, as a body, I totally agree with you. Individually, there are some sprinkled in that have a core decency about them. And I wouldn't castigate on them all that way.
The Democrats and everyone calling for transparency have high ground. Anyone who reduces the relevance of what the victims have to say or the existence of what was promised has low ground. Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.